Good morning, beloved people. I want us to remember the fallen angels because they are fallen even up to today. They have never risen up. These are the evil angels who are constantly aiding Satan in his evil works. What does the Bible say about them? When you read Revelation chapter 12, verse 12, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So you see, he has come, and he has come with wrath. He does not want any of us to enjoy what he enjoyed in heaven. And so he'll do everything to make me and you to miss, to enjoy what he enjoyed. Well, I want us to go back to the book of Patriarchs and Prophets that we read about Lucifer becoming Satan in the origin of sin / Satan. Now, the perfect harmony of heaven was broken. Lucifer's disposition to serve himself instead of his creator aroused a feeling of apprehension. When observed by those who considered that the glory of God should be supreme, in heavenly council, the angels pleaded with Lucifer. The Son of God presented before him the greatness, the goodness, and the justice of the Creator, and the sacred, unchanging nature of his law. God himself had established the order of heaven, and in departing from it, Lucifer would dishonor his Maker and bring ruin upon himself. But the warning given in infinite love and mercy by Christ only aroused a spirit of resistance. Lucifer allowed his jealousy of Christ to prevail and became the more determined to dispute the supremacy of the Son of God, thus impeaching the wisdom and love of the Creator. It was his purpose as the Prince of Angels. To this object he was about to bend the energies of the mastermind, which next to Christ was first among the host of God. But he who would have the will of all his creatures free, left none unguarded to the bewildering sophistry by which rebellion would seek to justify itself. Before the great contest should open, all were to have a clear presentation of his will, whose wisdom and goodness were the spring of all their joy. So you see, God was so full of love that he did not leave the angels without having a certain decision that they can make in the controversy that he saw was coming through Lucifer. The King of the universe summoned the heavenly host before him, that in their presence he might set forth the true position of his Son and show the relation he sustained to all created beings. The Son of God shared the Father's throne, and the glory of the eternal, self-existent one circled both. So God wanted to set the position, the true position of his Son to this heavenly host or to the angels. About the throne gathered the holy angels, a vast and numbered throng. When you read Revelation chapter 5 verse 11, it says 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands. The angels are too many than what we think, even than all the people in this earth. Because we know there are so many worlds and worlds that God created. And we only know of the earth. But the angels are an unnumbered number. The Son of God shared the Father's throne, and the glory of the eternal self-existent one circled both. About the throne gathered the holy angels, a vast and numbered throng, as we have already seen. The most exalted angels. So in those angels, they are in ranks. We have the most exalted angels, ministers, subjects. They were all rejoicing in the light that fell upon them from the presence of the deity. Before the assembled inhabitants of heaven, the King or God declared that none but Christ, the only begotten of God, could fully enter into his purposes, and to him it was committed to execute the mighty counsels of his will. So you see, he has set those boundaries that none but his Son, Christ, would enter his counsels and his purposes. The Son of God had wrought the Father's will in the creation of all the hosts of heaven, and to him, as well as to God, their homage, the angels' homage and allegiance were due. So, the allegiance and homage of all the angels in heaven were only due to God the Father and God the Son. Only due to those two. And you see, Satan was, or rather Lucifer, was an angel. So even his allegiance and homage was due only to God and his Son. Christ was still to exercise divine power in the creation of the earth and its inhabitants. So the earth and its inhabitants had not yet been created. But in all this, he would not seek power or exaltation for himself, contrary to God's plan, but would exalt the Father's glory and execute his purposes of beneficence and love. You see how humbled Christ was. Christ was so humbled. He would not do anything that was not in line with the will of his Father. Now, the angels joyfully acknowledged the supremacy of Christ, and prostrating themselves before him, poured out their love and adoration. Even Lucifer bowed with them, but in his heart there was a strange, fierce conflict. Truth, justice, and loyalty. Loyalty to who? To the Son of God. We are struggling against envy and jealousy. You see, Lucifer envied the Son of God. He was jealous of him. The influence of the holy angels seemed for a time to carry him with them, as songs of praise ascended in melodious strains, swelled by thousands of glad voices. The spirit of evil seemed vanquished. It seems he was carried by the other angels into giving homage to the Son of God. Unutterable love thrilled his entire being. His soul went out in harmony with the sinless worshippers. In love to the Father and the Son. But again, he was filled with pride in his own glory. What glory did Lucifer have? Ashes, because he was created by God. So all or any glory he had was due to God. If he had any glory, it was just ashes, nothing. But you see, his soul was filled with his pride in his own glory. His desire for supremacy returned, and envy of Christ was once more indulged. The high honors conferred upon Lucifer were not appreciated as God's special gift, and therefore called forth no gratitude to his Creator. He gloried in his brightness and exaltation, and aspired to be equal with God. He was beloved and reverenced by the heavenly host. Angels delighted to execute his commands. Yeah, because you remember Satan was the most exalted angel among the angelic host. So even the other angels delighted to execute his commands. And he was clothed with wisdom and glory above them all. Yet the Son of God was exalted above him. How? Lucifer wondered. As one in power and authority with the Father, he shared the Father's counsels, while Lucifer did not thus enter into the purposes of God. Why, questioned this mighty angel, should Christ have the supremacy? Why is he honored above me? Yeah, Lucifer questioned. Why? Why is Christ, why is the Son of God honored above me? Leaving his place in the immediate presence of the Father, Lucifer went forth to diffuse the spirit of discontent among the angels. Yeah, remember when we read about Ezekiel chapter 28 verse 16, we learned that he was the covering cherub. So he left his work, his office, and he went to diffuse the spirit of discontent among the angels. He worked with mysterious secrecy, and for a time concealed his real purpose under an appearance of reverence for God. He began to insinuate doubts concerning the laws that governed heavenly beings, intimating that though laws might be necessary for the inhabitants of the worlds, angels, being more exalted, needed no such restraint, for their own wisdom was a sufficient guide. Yeah, some people say that we are holy, we cannot sin. The same thing that Lucifer said, and how evil Lucifer is. They were not beings that could bring dishonor to God. All their thoughts were holy. This is what he cheated the angels. It was no more possible for them than for God himself to err. You see, he wants to put him and the angels at par with God. That if God cannot sin, even them, they cannot sin. So why do they need commands and laws anyway? And that's what the world says. We don't need the laws. The exaltation of the Son of God as equal with the Father was represented as an injustice to Lucifer, who it was claimed was also entitled to reverence and honor. Even he said that exalting the Son of God as equal with the Father is an injustice to himself, because he was also entitled to reverence and honor. If the Son of God was being reverenced and honored and given homage and exalted, even him, he was also entitled. This is what the prince of darkness, or rather Lucifer, insinuated to the other angels. If this prince of angels could but attain to his true exalted position, great good would accrue to the entire host of heaven, for it was his object to secure freedom for all. You see what is giving his own manifesto. If you fought for me, I'll do this and that. But now even the liberty which they had hitherto enjoyed was at an end, he told the angels, for an absolute ruler had been appointed them, that Christ would finish their liberty. You see how cunning he was. And to his authority all must pay homage, misrepresenting Christ. Such were the subtle deceptions that through the wiles of Lucifer were fast obtaining in the heavenly courts. For sure, there had been no change in the position or authority of Christ. Lucifer's envy and misrepresentation and his claims to equality with Christ had made it necessary for God to give a statement of the position of the Son of God. There was no change. Christ, that position that God mentioned to the angels about his Son, he had occupied it even before these angels were made or they came into existence, because he existed with the Son. The Word was with God. But the envy and jealousy of Satan and misrepresenting the Son of God made God to state this position that Christ occupied before even they existed. But this had been the same from the beginning. Many of the angels were, however, blinded by Lucifer's deceptions. Taking advantage of the loving, loyal trust reposed in him by the holy beings under his command, he had so artfully instilled into their minds his own distrust and discontent that his agency was not discerned. Lucifer had presented the purposes of God in a false light, misconstruing and distorting them to excite dissent and dissatisfaction. He cunningly drew his hearers on to give utterance to their feelings. Then these expressions were repeated by him when it would serve his purpose, as evidence that the angels were not fully in harmony with the government of God. While claiming for himself perfect loyalty to God, he urged that changes in the order and laws of heaven were necessary for the stability of the divine government. Thus, while working to excite opposition to the law of God and to instill his own discontent into the minds of the angels under him, he was ostensibly seeking to remove dissatisfaction and to reconcile disaffected angels to the order of heaven. While secretly fomenting discord and rebellion, he with consummate craft caused it to appear as his sole purpose to promote loyalty and to preserve harmony and peace. The spirit of dissatisfaction thus kindled was doing its best work. While there was no open outbreak, division of feelings imperceptibly grew up among the angels. You see what he has brought? He has brought division in the feelings of the angels. There were some who looked with favor upon Lucifer's insinuations against the government of God. Although they had heretofore been in perfect harmony with the order which God had established, they were now discontented and unhappy because they could not penetrate its unsearchable counsels. They were dissatisfied with his purpose in exalting Christ. They stood ready to second Lucifer's demand for equal authority with the Son of God. But angels who